Theatrical Shenanigans with
Wynn Rousuck.
Hello there, and welcome to the penultimate episode of Season 3 of Theatrical Shenanigans. For any new listeners out there, I am your host, Rachel Feeney-Williams, and as with all episodes, we have a fabulous place for you to listen to, as well as a chat with a guest. My guest this week is a Baltimore-based award-winning theatre critic for the Baltimore Sun, where she reviewed more than 3,000 plays over the course of 23 years. She taught theatre criticism for more than 2 decades at the Eugene O'Neill Theatre Centre's National Critics Institute, and has taught in various programmes at Johns Hopkins University. Her debut novel, Please Write, A Novel and Letters, was published in November 2023 to wide acclaim, and it chronicles the correspondence between a recently widowed artist and 2 dogs, one of which has a theatre critic owner. It's a real thrill to have her here. Welcome, Wynn Rousuck.
Thank you. It's a thrill to be here.
So, as always, we start at the beginning. How did you get started in your path in the theatre world?
Well, I started out wanting to be a newspaper reporter, and I became a newspaper reporter. And it didn't occur to me until partway into my first job, which was for the Cleveland Press in Ohio. And I was assigned to be the third string critic. I reviewed movies, I reviewed concerts, and I reviewed theater. And it had never occurred to me until then that I could combine what I saw as my chosen career, newspaper reporting, with the great love of my life, theater. And from that moment on, all I wanted to do was become a theater critic. I'd been a big theater fan from the very first show my parents took me to. And I have been very, very fortunate, particularly in this time when newspapers in the United States are disappearing and the ones that are left are eliminating arts criticism. So I was the critic for 23 years at the Baltimore Sun, and now I'm up to 17 at Baltimore's National Public Radio station.
You do also have a great deal of experience in teaching. What made you decide that was something you wanted to pursue?
That really came about because I was offered opportunities to teach. It is not something I went after. And I have taught on all levels. I've taught international styles of puppetry in connection with The Lion King to inner city middle school students. And I've taught programs. I did a very detailed course about Stephen Sondheim, whom I was lucky enough to interview. And I did that for retirees primarily. I left the Baltimore Sun. I took a buyout from the Baltimore Sun in 2007. And in terms of teaching, I was able to study with the person who I think is one of the greatest teachers ever, and that's the Pulitzer Prize winning playwright Paula Vogel. I had interviewed her a number of times, and I called her when I was thinking of leaving the Sun and told her that I was thinking of leaving, and I didn't know if I had any creativity left in me, but I had taken one of her workshops. She believes anybody can write a play, and I thought if anyone could find that creativity, it would be her.
But then you've also had great success with your novel. What made you decide that was an avenue you wanted to go down?
Well, Paula's principles definitely influenced me, but I had this story that I wanted to tell. And I've had people say to me, "Oh, did you always want to write a novel?" And I always answer the same way. I always wanted to write this novel. I had been living with these characters for quite a while, and I found that they had helped me cope with tough situations. And I made it an epistolary novel. The subtitle is A Novel and Letters. And people have said to me since then, "Oh, well, this could be a play because we're hearing these characters' voices." And that had never occurred to me. There aren't a lot of epistolary plays. They're really hard to do. I thought a novel would be a way to combine these letters, to tell a story through letters, and to definitely give each character a very distinct voice through their different writing styles and sort of mannerisms on the page.
And finally, before we move on, do you have through your career a standout moment that at the time made you think, yes, this is why I've chosen to do this?
Boy, I mean, I have always loved doing this so much. I love the fact that every day and every play is different, and you become kind of a mini expert for the length of the time you are researching, writing about the play, seeing the play, of course. And I love that aspect of this. So many different worlds. There certainly are plays that I have come out of so much in awe. I feel so privileged that in so many cases, I was the first critic to review something. If a show tried out for Broadway in Baltimore or in Washington, where they get many Broadway tryouts. And it's very, very exciting to sort of give the reader not only information about the play, but a sense of what it was like to be sitting in my seat and experiencing that play for the very, very first time.
So, from our guest, we now move on to our playwright and play for this episode. Judy Class is a New York-based playwright who featured as a panellist in The Panel Presents back in December 2023. Outside of that, she's a very busy and talented woman, with one play published by Next Stage Press and another by Samuel French, which is now known as Concord. She also has 41 productions of her plays across the US, in the UK, Canada and Ireland. And when she's not busy writing amazing works that have won awards, she's also a teacher at Vanderbilt University in Nashville, as well as following her passion for songwriting. Judy's play, entitled What We Cast Off, has been produced on stage and over Zoom in the US and Canada. In it, we see Janet is hanging out with Molly, a friend she's not seen in decades, and they discuss relationships, their friendship, and butterflies. Theatrical Shenanigans presents What We Cast Off by Judy Class.
More coffee?
No, I'm good.
So do you want to take a look at what we've got here in the terrarium? Or would it gross you out?
I'm not big on bugs.
I remember.
But if it's butterflies, butterflies don't gross me out.
Well, they're not butterflies yet. When they turn into butterflies, when they hatch, we let them hang out in here for a while till they pump all of the fluid from their abdomens into the wings, and the wings harden up. Then we say goodbye and let them fly away.
So you've got a lot of cocoons in there?
Chrysalises.
Isn't that just a fancy name for cocoons?
No, cocoons are for moths. They spin a cocoon around themselves and change inside of it. But these monarch butterflies are amazing. The caterpillars get really big and fat, and they hang from the top of the terrarium like in a J shape, and eventually they split their skin open and they whisk it away.
What's inside when they take their skin off?
A green blob thing. When the skin splits, it shrivels and bunches up near the top around the black stem that's stuck to the roof. And then the green blob keeps squirming and twisting around until the skin falls off. And then it firms up as a beautiful chrysalis. It's like a jade green temple with flecks of gold and black trim. See? Just look through the glass and up. See them hanging from the roof?
I guess.
You don't seem thrilled.
They're nice.
No, I think they're gorgeous anyhow.
But all that stuff down below?
That's milkweed. All they eat is milkweed. And then you might have seen the caterpillars down there munching on it.
They're big.
Yeah, some of them are getting really big. I think they're gorgeous also, the caterpillars. Yellow and black and white, all tiger striped, with those kabuki mask faces. I think every phase in the metamorphosis of a monarch butterfly is absolutely gorgeous.
Well, everybody needs a hobby, I guess.
Well, and they're nice to raise because they're tough, they're hardy. They're going to have to fly to Mexico, some of them, and back. They don't die on you like most bugs in captivity would, as long as you keep the food coming. We're lucky that we have a lot of land here and the milkweed grows along the perimeter. You know, it grows best at the edges of ecozones.
If you say so. How many do you have in there?
5 chrysalises on the roof. The one that's turning brown, that should hatch tomorrow. It should look black with some Navajo brown by tonight. And then there are 4 caterpillars down the leaves, munching away or hanging out and molting. And then there are 7 more little baby caterpillars in the container in the kitchen. 2 of the eggs hatched today. You know, I just put them in a plastic container with some leaves and a moist cotton ball. I put saran wrap over the top and poke holes in it with a toothpick. with a rubber band around it to hold it in place.
Wow, that's a lot of bugs. Why do you keep them separate?
Well, all they do is eat milkweed, and they're kind of made of milkweed. So if I put the little ones in with the big ones, they might wind up getting eaten along with the milkweed.
Yuck.
The caterpillars are on a mission to eat. That's all they do. They were in trouble, the monarchs. Well, they still are, with Roundup killing milkweed and people killing it for other stupid reasons, and the places they winter in Mexico being threatened. I like to do what I can. When I find the eggs or the baby caterpillars, they have a much better chance of surviving when I raise them indoors, and I feel like I'm contributing to keeping the monarchs going. But of course, I really just like to raise them.
How does your husband feel about it?
Stanley's okay with it. He pokes his head in and has a look every day. He likes to help launch the butterflies, let them walk all over his face and perch on his nose before they take off. He's a science guy, but it's more astronomy and physics for him, not biology.
I never would have figured it.
What?
That you'd wind up doing science stuff, married to a scientist. You always went for the tortured poets or the colorful actors.
Well, I've found there are some drawbacks to both. The ones full of angst and self-pity, and the charming guys like Philip who turned out to be not so charming. I don't know if I'd have been drawn to Stanley back when I knew you.
I think you said he's older than you?
Yes, by about 10 years.
And your kids are...
Mark is still at college, and Arabella's 23.
That's great. I'm glad things worked out for you.
It seems like you're doing better than when we spoke on the phone. I don't mean today, I mean...
Yes. Thank you for taking the call.
Come on, Molly. How was I not going to take that call? I was glad to hear from you. And you were obviously in pain.
Well, it had been a while, and I was not quite right in the head. Thank you for not hanging up right away, and thank you for not hanging up later when I started attacking you.
You were, as you say...
Funny in the head.
Yeah, well, who wouldn't be in that situation? And I knew that I was saying things that you did not want to hear.
You were right, though.
I was? I took a guess. So, you're saying he really does have somebody on the side?
Yep.
And is she... do you know if she's younger?
Yep. I thought it was just empty nest syndrome. You know, Nina's a freshman this term. It was weird for both of us, suddenly alone in the house. He started getting all touchy and defensive about being useless, being a house husband, about needing to go back out into the world and find out who he is. I just thought it was part of the rocky transition. When he was attacking me for taking away his manhood by being the breadwinner...
What garbage.
I thought we could work through it.
But it was all just a dreary, predictable midlife crisis, with the middle-aged guy running off with a younger woman, looking for a reason to blame you.
Yes.
What a fink.
I guess. He waited until Nina was grown up, out of the house, and then he took the household apart and moved on.
And how are you doing now?
Better than I was when I couldn't breathe, when I'd have done anything to make him come home.
You know I've never liked Oliver, right? I hope I didn't seem like I was gloating when I said he was probably just running around and having an affair.
You didn't sound like you were gloating.
Well, I was gloating, in a sense, but I tried to keep it out of my voice. I resent him for breaking up our friendship. You and I go back. To camp counselor days, my God. To college years and a circle of friends that I thought would be my group of friends forever.
I know.
And when you fell for that guy, you were flirting online. I barely had a computer. I had barely started emailing.
We were all just starting to use computers.
And he was flirting with you with sports jokes. Double entendre sports jokes. And you came to me for help, remember?
I guess I'd forgotten. But now that you mention it...
Well, and I was proud to help you figure out what to write back. I felt like Cyrano de Bergerac writing love poetry for someone else. Well, not that I was secretly in love with you or him. I hadn't met him. But I was glad you'd met someone nice, and I wanted to help facilitate. So I'd give you sports terms that sounded dirty. Backhand swing. It's all in the wrist. Strokes. Point love game. Butterfly kick. Playing one-on-one. Stealing third base. I don't even like sports. I asked Philip to help me come up with the ideas. I was still with Philip then.
Yeah.
And then you get together with this bozo, thanks a little bit to my help. And what does he do but decide I'm awful and drive a wedge between us?
I think he felt threatened by my old friendships, by my family even. He didn't want me to have this whole history and this whole life before him. He wanted it just to be me and him, starting a new adventure in life.
But that's selfish. To separate the woman in your life from the other people that she's close to. That's what made me dislike him that first year. When I saw he was selfish that way. And then when Philip and I broke up.
I'm sorry about that.
I know we kind of went over this once on the phone years back, but it's still kind of a sticking point for me. You had some email address that was only for work, and you told me to just email Oliver, and he'd pass it along to you. So I did. I'd send some funny thing I'd seen online. I'd just forward an email, not with an attachment, but along the top above the article or joke, I'd write a note to you. And the note often started off light and chatty, talking about whatever I was forwarding to you, but then it would say something like, I really need to see you. I need to talk to you. I feel like I'm all alone in the world. Please, hit reply.
Well, I never saw those notes. Oliver had a theory. Someone told him he could get a virus from just opening an email, a forwarded article or whatever, even without an attachment.
Well, he couldn't. He's stupid.
Well, he had heard he could. So when he saw something forwarded, he hit delete.
So you explained to me back then, like it was some unimportant, reasonable thing. But to me, when I learned that, it felt like I had been writing you letters and your husband was throwing them away, and you were okay with that. I don't think you should have been okay with it.
You're right.
It's amazing when there's a big, messy breakup, like with me and Philip, and friends feel like they have to choose sides. It's like a custody battle, who gets which friends.
I know. I'm getting to experience the wonders of all that now.
And other friends, they just let you go. A lot of people saw me as a cast-off woman, and they cast me off too.
I'm getting some of that. The stigma from family, telling me that people in our family don't divorce, and what's wrong with me that I couldn't keep my marriage together.
But I wasn't expecting that from you.
Look, Janet, Oliver, I think it rattled me and Oliver when you broke up with Philip. It was still pretty early in our relationship. Oliver liked Philip.
More than he liked me.
Yes. And so maybe us being around a breakup seemed like bad luck to him.
So he threw away my letters to you, without telling you, without telling me he was doing that, for half a year. I'm still not okay with that. And it's hard for me to be okay with how you were okay with that.
I am sorry.
I mean, I know your whole world has collapsed now in a similar way, and it's not the time for me to be coming at you with these personal issues from the 1990s.
No, it's fine. It was wrong of me, and it was wrong of me to get accusatory on the phone last month when you suggested he was probably having an affair. I can deal with the fact now that he's flawed.
That he's basically a dick.
He's the father of my beautiful daughter, and he stayed home and he raised her.
While you killed yourself building a law career and gave him a beautiful home.
I couldn't have done it without him. I couldn't have all the beauty that Nina has brought into my life, obviously, without him. But yes, sure, I can acknowledge now that he's kind of a dick, and that I made excuses for his dickishness for many years, and it caused me to be a bad friend to people like you. And as I try to pick up the pieces of my life, Janet, that's one of the things...
Janet, you have company.
Yeah, Stanley. I think I mentioned my old friend Molly was coming by.
Oh, how do you do?
Hi.
I wanted to let you know, Janet, I heard from the men.
The men?
The men who will be coming by to fix Zola. They said they will be coming by next week, either Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon. They're not sure.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
We can hold on till then.
I'm betting we can.
We can take showers and baths. And now I must get back to the article I'm reading on nebulae and binaries. but it was very nice meeting you,
Molly.
Molly.
Hey, likewise. Wow. Very different from Philip and the other guys I've seen you with.
Well, I'm happy about the difference.
So, Zola? The men are coming by to fix Zola?
Our jacuzzi. We named it after Emile Zola. You know, he was a writer in France. When the Dreyfus case was going on and the French government and the army said they had caught the spy and then they sent him to Devil's Island, but it was the wrong man. The spy was still on the loose, but they covered it up.
I'm sorry, I don't.
Oh, so Zola wrote this piece in the newspaper saying, "J'accuse. I accuse the army, the government, this person, that person, so j'accuse. Jacuzzi." We named our jacuzzi Zola. It's kind of a lame joke.
I guess I never would have thought of you as a jacuzzi person.
Well, I wasn't. And then the hot flashes started when I was 52, and I said, oh no. And I started taking not just showers, but baths in the middle of the night. If I was going to be drenched in sweat, it seemed like I might as well have a sauna effect and take control of it, you know? But I felt guilty to waste so much water and heat, and then we got solar panels put in and a big expensive Tesla battery so I can use energy in the middle of the night. And it's still our energy, the sun's energy, so I don't have to feel guilty. Sometimes Stanley joins me and we both hang out in Zola for an hour or so at like 2 a.m. It's a nerd heaven.
Sounds kinky.
Well, maybe it gets kinky also sometimes. But it's very nice to have something sinful and decadent like a jacuzzi and not even feel guilty about it.
Are you still teaching?
Of course, here and there, when I feel like it. Stanley actually has some money socked away. Even after paying for college for the kids, we're in good shape.
So after those rough years, you've lived happily ever after. And I thought I was living happily ever after. Now, look at me.
I was never competing with you, Molly.
I know, it's just funny. Situational irony. The gods up there setting me up and laughing.
Are you still handling a lot of work at your firm?
More than ever. With Nina off at school and Oliver off with this little Totsie, I've been pouring myself into work. It's good. It keeps me from thinking about things.
I'm really sorry.
No, I was a lousy friend to you. You have every right to gloat over my life crashing and burning.
That wasn't it. I was gloating over Oliver being revealed to be a shallow, lying stinker when he made such a show of being a romantic, being a great guy. But I never wished a bad thing on you. In fact, I wish this hadn't happened. It's nice to have you back in my life as a friend, but I just wish you'd never had to look me up. I wish he hadn't run out on you.
It was hard to trace you. First I tracked down Ingrid on Facebook, but she didn't know where you were. But she said Donnie might.
Yeah. Ingrid was another person I thought I'd be friends with forever. But she got together with another woman, and that woman assumed there was something between me and Ingrid. She was like Oliver, keeping her away from old friends. Only worse, because she assumed we all thought Ingrid was as hot as she did.
Well, Ingrid is hot.
Well, of course she is. She's fabulous and graceful and amazing. But I put her on a pedestal. I wasn't trying to get her into bed. But the woman she's with...
Ingrid's Facebook says they're married. Ingrid and Nicole?
Yeah, Nicole, that was her name. They're still together?
Yeah, it looks like they have kids.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad Ingrid found happiness and has kids. And I still think Nicole's a stinker, the way I think Oliver's a stinker. Donnie's boyfriend also.
Donnie's shacked up?
Yeah, and high time, too. With a guy who's quite a bit younger. But this guy's from a traditional Chinese household with lots of gay bashing. He's estranged from his own mother and sister, and he doesn't want Donnie to have women friends. And it's all so tiresome. I think I expected, when we all knew each other, I thought we'd raise our kids together. We'll be godparents for each other's kids. We'll form a big hippie commune and have potluck dinners, and we'll be enchanted by each other's spouses. We'll be friends for life, and it did not work out that way.
Does it ever?
For some people, I think it really does. They like their friends' significant others, and they're all kind of married to each other and hanging out together. But not for me. It's not my karma. I've been thinking a lot about what we cast off, what falls away. what we get for life and what we get for just a little while, and whether it's good or bad for things to disappear. Friends, pets.
Well, obviously, I've been thinking about that kind of stuff. I mean, losing Oliver and poking around in the shards of my life and trying to remember who I was before I met him, before I became such a high-powered lawyer and what defines me. You're not the only friend I lost, and some of them don't want me back in their lives. Do you?
I'm glad to see you, Molly. And I understand you being loyal to your husband and distancing yourself from friends for the sake of your marriage. I do get that. A person's first loyalty is to the other person in the couple. And at the same time, I've never been as low as I was when I broke up with Philip. And when I was sending you those messages into the ether and your prick of a husband was deleting them.
I know, and I'm sorry. We lost a pet recently, too. We had a big old sheepdog that had cancer, and we had to have it put down. We chose to do it before Nina went off to school so she could say goodbye. That was part of the rough transition.
See? Monarch butterflies make ideal pets. You raise them, you give them lots of milkweed to chomp on for a few weeks, then they hang around on the roof as a chrysalis for a week or so, and then they fly away off to Mexico and come back and pollinate your garden next spring. You can love them and cast them off and feel good.
And kids.
Kids fly away off to college, but the period of feeding them lasts longer.
And they never turn into a chrysalis.
They don't become a pupa, but they become pubescent. They pull into themselves and get antisocial for a few years. Mine did.
Nina and I are close.
How's she handling all this? You've told her, right?
Sure, we've told her. Oliver moved out. We're talking divorce.
Is he going to try to fleece you? Take all the money you've earned?
Wow, you really didn't like him.
I really don't. It's great to be able to tell you that directly.
Oliver deserves some of the money I've made, just like a woman who stayed home and raised the kids and cooked would deserve a decent settlement in a divorce. But no, I don't think he's going to try to clean me out. I'm a lawyer, but we both know how ugly court cases can be, and we want to avoid that for our family. It's one thing we're trying to coordinate, making it less rough for Nina. Except that she came home for a break and went to dinner at his house and found him living with the new woman. And I think she found that shocking. He could have prepared her for it, but he didn't. He just took it all in stride, acted like, so what? This is the new normal.
'Cause he's a dick.
I'm angry at him about that. Nina is trying to be very gentle with me.
That's nice of her. I bet she's a nice kid.
I hope it doesn't mess up her first year of college.
Sorry to interrupt once again, but may I share with you some of what I've been reading?
Sure, Stanley. Hit us with it.
It's that for years, scientists have wondered about the nebulae. What causes them? You know, shrouds of gas around dying stars. The layers that get sloughed off. They can be so beautiful. And now we know that there is often a binary pair of stars at the center of a nebula. And that gives the axis its shape. Not a sphere, but more like an hourglass or a butterfly.
You were reading about this online?
No, here, it's in one of the journals I still get in the mail. And I thought you might like to see the pictures. Isn't that simply the most beautiful thing you've ever seen?
It's really beautiful, Stanley.
And this one.
It's pretty.
Thanks for showing us, sweetie.
And now I must go back and read the end of the article.
Yes, you must. Absolutely.
Wow.
He's a character. You know, in the last few years watching The Big Bang Theory, I've realized that a lot of guys I dated were maybe dancing somewhere along the autism spectrum. I think if I'd realized it earlier, I might have handled the relationships better.
Even the poets and the actors? Even Philip?
Maybe. Hard to say. And I mean, I'm a nerd also, but it's especially true with Stanley. He has several nephews that have some real problems. Their parents will have to be caring for those boys forever. We were lucky with both Mark and Arabella. They seem to have dodged that bullet.
Yes. Raising a kid with special needs would be
incredibly hard. But even just raising a kid who's quirky and then some, who can't really hold down a job, who never really leaves the nest.
You prefer the empty seat, soaking with your man in a hot tub in the middle of the night.
I prefer the way my life is now to the pain and isolation of so many of the years back when I knew you, when I was young. Pain even when I was in relationships.
Me too. Up until a few months ago, I would have said that I was all set for life.
You still could be. You could meet a good guy.
I can't even think about that.
Think of Oliver as a drone bee. He was useful, you mated with him, you had offspring, and now you can find someone fun who lets you keep your friends.
I'm just trying to figure out who I am again. I am just casting off the old stuff and letting it fall away.
And letting it make a beautiful nebula all around you.
Maybe. Will you be able to forgive me for disappearing for the last 25 years? Will you let me be your friend again?
I don't think I could be friends with Ingrid again. Donnie and I muddle through, we just don't involve our significant others.
Donnie doesn't like Stanley.
Oh, they tolerate each other. Anyhow, Ingrid, no. That woman Nicole is too horrible and rude, and Ingrid lets her demonize me. She allowed it to happen. Of course, I say that now. Who knows? Yes, Molly, I'm glad to have you back in my life. I'm glad that my old friend has looked me up. I mean, that's part of it all. The weird, random things I've been trying to sort through, the stuff that leaves you and the stuff that comes back when you least expect it.
Like butterflies in the spring.
Maybe. The metamorphosis of a butterfly, I think it's a useful metaphor for phases of life. Each of them pretty interesting.
Now you're getting deep.
Stanley would reach for his nebulas and supernovas. Those are his favorite kind of metaphor. I prefer bugs. But whatever works, Whatever helps you stay zen and accept change.
Change sucks.
A lot of the time, yeah, it can.
Cast off your skin and you're just a blob squirming around.
And then you become a chrysalis. And then you become a butterfly.
Ha!
And if not, you can always get drunk.
Do you still do that?
Sometimes. Would you like some Baileys in your coffee?
I think I would. Yeah.
Coming up.
A lovely moment of friendship with some lovely butterfly metaphors there. That was Megan Bickel as Janet, Deborah Cole as Molly, and Tony Targin as Stanley in What We Cast Off by Judy Class. So, Judy, what did you think?
I also found the things that it had to say about friendship and the comparisons to monarch butterflies in specific quite lovely. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a play about relationships. And particularly friendships, and how difficult it can be to maintain friendships, and what happens when a friendship becomes estranged, and then there's a chance to rebuild that and rebuild something that had become a troubled relationship. And I found that a very interesting and affecting theme, and one that really I think almost anyone can relate to.
I always find it interesting because you go into friendships when you're at school or college or university with such a almost naive sense of this is going to last forever, and then there is that moment 5-10 years later when you think, I wonder what happened to so and so who is going to be my best friend forever and ever and ever. And I think that's what this brings to life, is that comparison between, yes, we thought we were going to be friends forever, but then something else got in the way, and that's the real life side of it. So it covers both of those in my mind.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, marital relationships figure prominently into this play as well, and the effect that those can have on friendships. And I also found it interesting, there's some beautiful descriptions in this play. I mean, Janet describes monarch butterflies, caterpillars, as yellow and black and white, all tiger striped, with those kabuki mask faces. That's just beautiful. It's beautiful. And I think that we see how delicate a butterfly, particularly a monarch butterfly's life and journey can be. And that in itself works in as a metaphor.
And it says a lot about Janet as a person, that these are the creatures she's chosen to kind of adopt, as it were, because they are very delicate. They do require very specific styles of care, but you can't like, just keep them in a glass case forever. Eventually they will have to be let loose and fly away. And I think that's kind of what Janet's done with her friendship with Molly. She kind of nurtured it initially in those initial stages, and then Molly got into this relationship, and Janet eventually realized she was going to have to let it go. So yeah,
I think that's a very apt comparison.
Yeah, the metaphors are galore in this, and I absolutely love it. I love all the different relationships, even the relationships you don't see. So obviously they talk about their other friends who've also got into relationships, and the girlfriend that Janet can't stand, and the boyfriend of their other friend whose parents are homophobic. And you just think, I want to meet these people now. You've brought these people to life through this conversation, and now I want to know what they're like. I even want to know what Molly's horrible ex-husband is like, just because they've brought him to life so much just in their conversation, that you started to imagine the world outside the box of what we see and what we hear.
I agree with you about the characters who are sort of off stage, who the Molly and Janet are just talking about. We do get a definite sense of them, and I would like to see more of them. And maybe in that sense, I had an idea that this could almost be the sketch for a bigger play, something on the order of the movie Big Chill. Where people who were friends maybe in their youth or young adulthood find themselves drawn back together by a tragedy. In the movie, it's a death. Here it's the death of a marriage, which is certainly also a tragic event. I feel that this relationship, this friendship, may turn out to be a keeper.
Yeah, I see there is that moment, well, there was for me anyway, as when I was reading it through the first time, when you get to the second to the last page, and Molly says, will you forgive me for disappearing for the last 25 years? Will you let me be your friend again? And there's a moment before my eyes kind of drop down to the next line where I thought, oh God, please say yes. Please don't make this whole thing go, no, I don't forgive you. Because that would have been a horrendous ending. So there is that kind of heart-wrenching moment that you feel as you discover what happened to their friendship, and as you then discover that it is going to get a chance to start anew and evolve into this beautiful new thing that was different to the way it was before.
Yes, but I also like the fact that there's a little ambiguity there. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. We've come to know these characters, and we have hopes for them and hopes for what might happen. Yeah. But Judy Class doesn't tie this up in a neat little knot or a neat little bow, and I think that's another strength of the piece.
Okay, we are almost out of time. Judy, your final thoughts on the piece as a whole?
I do think it's an interesting piece with characters that are pretty well fleshed out for such a short piece, enough so that we care about them and what's going to happen to them. And I think there's some beautiful writing, especially descriptive writing.
Yeah, totally agree. Couldn't have put it better myself. Okay, that does bring us to the end of the episode. Judy, thank you so much for joining me and talking about you and your work. And lastly, before you go, if any of my readers out there want to buy your book, tell them again where they can buy it from.
Okay, the book is called Please Write, a Novel in Letters. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on Barnes & Noble. And you can certainly ask your local bookstore and library to get copies of it.
Okay, Judy, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
And that brings us to the end of episode 9 of season 3 of Theatrical Shenanigans. I hope you enjoyed our play today and my chat with Judy. Our final episode will go live in 2 weeks' time, so I hope you can join us then. But in the meantime, though, I've been Rachel Feeney Williams. This is Theatrical Shenanigans, bringing down the curtain and saying, I hope you can join us next time. Theatrical Shenanigans, part of an RFW Scripts production, found on Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, and anywhere else you can find your podcasts. Music is written and produced by Chris Cody.